Okay, this video will be on the humeral veil. You will need a clasp, an emblem, 1¼ yards of fringe, lightweight canvas, one that's going to go behind the emblem, and 2 pieces, 2½ inches by 2½ inches. Lining, 1 piece of lining 106 inches by 20 inches, 2 pieces, 23 inches by 17 inches for the insert for the hands. I have a quilting board here that you could measure that 23 by 17 on a quilting board and you'll get the exact measurements nice and even. It works very well. You can use a long ruler to measure and then cut, and that works. It works quite well. On the fabric, you'll need 104 inches by 20 inches. You can cut it in the length if the pattern runs in the same up and down or sideways. And of course, you would want to find out where you want to put the emblem and center that in the fabric pattern. Or you can cut out a piece in the center, for the center of the fabric, so the emblem can go here, and then you could add pieces on either side if you have to do it across. You have to cut the fabric across. So you can decide how much you want on either side depending on how wide your fabric is. So you'll find the center and place a piece of canvas behind where the emblem will go. If the emblem is very heavy, you might want to make sure that the canvas extends to the seam. You want to stay stitch that canvas down and sew the emblem on. And I have a video on sewing emblems in trim, and you can watch that and it'll show you how to sew that easier, a lot easier. It'll cut your time in half, okay? Now you can add the fringe to the ends now, or you can wait and then top stitch it later. Some of the fringes are different bands on the top. This one here has a little wider band, so you could put this fringe on the edge of your fabric, leaving room, of course, for your seam. Turn the edge over and then put it like this, and then later on tuck the lining underneath and sew it by hand, or you can wait and you can turn the fabric and the lining, and turn the edge of that, of course. There'll be the seam here, and attach it like that and top stitch it. It's up to you. You can add a pocket to this humeral veil. You can ask Father if he wants one. Not all of the humeral veils have it. But the pocket is 23 inches long by 17 inches in the depth. You're going to fold the long edge of one side, turn it twice, and stitch it down. Don't do the other side because that other side will be incorporated into the seam allowance. Now what you're going to do is get the lining, and here I have marks on it. Okay, there's a mark 3½ inches, 5½. You could put pins here at the 8-inch, the 10-inch, 12½, and the 14-inch, 14½ inch. You can use a ruler like this, or lay it down and use a stiffer ruler. It doesn't matter. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be folding that fabric up. I mean the lining, right? Not the fabric, right? Fabric for the lining. So you'll take the 3.5 inch and fold it up to the 5.5 inch. Pin it. You take the 8 inch, fold it, bring it up to the 10 inch. Pin it. Find 12.5 inch line, fold it, bring it up to the 14.5 inch. And you'll notice that it's going up to the side that's been turned under. Make sure you don't do it the opposite way, because when we're done, you want the pocket to go in this way. So the folds are going like this from the seam, because this is going to be attached to the seam. After you have these in place and pinned in 3 places, you're going to press it. After it's pressed, then you're going to stitch it in place. Just stitch along the folds on both sides, and that'll hold it down. Once these are stitched, then you will turn these ends in, pin it, and you're going to attach it to that big piece of lining. Okay, so now you're going to take this seam part here. There we go. And you're going to attach it to the big piece. Like that. And you're going to attach it 18 inches from the center. This will be the center of that big lining piece. You're going to measure from the center over 18 inches, and you're going to sew that pocket on 3 sides to hold it in place. So you're going to stitch it on both the short sides and along the top near the seam will be, not the bottom. The bottom will be where your hand gets inserted inside, so you don't want to do that part. Then you're going to take that little 2.5 piece of canvas that I asked you to cut out, and you're going to put it behind the lining on this side here, not this here, because this is where the clasp is going to be. So that 2.5 inch piece there will be there, and you will tack it down in the same color thread that your lining is. So you can't see, you don't want to see the stitches. Now, with the right sides together of the lining and the fabric, you're going to sew all along the top and the bottom, the whole length of the lining and the fabric. Then this is a sample, and I'll show you the difference between what happens when you press it the wrong way. Okay, this is a tube, just from, oh, I don't know, maybe wax paper or maybe foil, but anyway, it's nice and sturdy. It's not going to bend. This side here, I pressed towards the fabric. It's folded like that. The other side, I press towards the lining. So which side's the better side? Let's turn it inside out and see. I put a pin on it. This is the lining side, and that is the fabric side. See? So pressing it towards the lining works a lot better. It will lay flatter. So don't press it towards the fabric. Okay? I'll show you again. So the white part is the lining. So you take the tube and you put pressure on both sides of the fabric on the tube, and you take the iron and you press it before you turn it right side out. Now the end, now you'll have almost everything done. Either you will have the fringe attached because you've decided you want to sew the fringe by hand. Depending, on the width of the top of the fringe, sometimes it doesn't work that you can put the lining in between. Here's the fabric. Usually you lay the fringe like this, and then you take the lining that's sticking out and you tuck it underneath and you sew it. And you would look at under the maniple in the stole, and I have an example of how you can sew this by hand if you want. Some people like to do hand sewing, some people don't. It's okay. Otherwise, you're just going to turn this one in, turn the other one in like this. Make sure it's straight. Use a ruler. You could use the quilting board to make sure that that seam is even, and then you can just top stitch the fringe on top. Here's a different kind. See, this one's kind of narrow. So if you pick this one out, I don't know that you could tuck the lining underneath there. There's not a lot of room. And then you would stitch that in two places, top and the bottom, up here and here. See, and here's a different kind. This is an old one that I took off a vestment. See, it's very narrow. But if you want to use it, that's nice. And then you would top stitch that on, turning the ends, of course. The last thing would be to put the clasp on. The clasp are going to go behind those pieces of canvas that I had you sew in. You'll be able to feel them. They're right. Well, if they're not where the pocket is because you decided not to have a pocket, then you'll have to feel for them. But it should start within 16 inches of center because we made them 2.5 inches in square. So what you do is you take the part of the clasp that has the hook. This is an old one. And you put it on the left side as if you had it on. Because most people are right-handed. So this one here would go on the right. So that way Father can clasp it on and hold it. So pretend you have it on and figure out where the clasp should go. And that should do it. Good luck. Good sewing.